Today, let's look at Le Violette by Scarlatti. It is a class 1 on the Texas PML. However, this one is the first one that I was assigned to in college. And so it's very dear to my heart. I really like it. But when I first got it, it was really hard. I had a really tough time with it, and a lot of it was placement. And I know I've talked about some of those things in the other videos, but this one, it really, if you don't place it correctly, it sounds very weak and thin and just way too light for what the piece is about. When you first look at this piece, you need to go through and you need to find your highest note. In the medium-high version, as a soprano, my highest note is a G5. So what I'm going to do when I warm up is I'm going to warm up a third higher than that. Since this is in the key of B flat, I'm gonna warm up not just to the G5, but I'm gonna warm up all the way up to the B flat 5. So I go all the way up there, and I'll also warm up as far down as I need to go as far as the low notes. But for the higher note, it's going to sound much more effortless if you warm up about a third above where you need to be. And it's just really helpful. Let's look at measures 4 and 5. I know I've talked about this in some of the other videos, but it's super important. You need to find that high note in the phrase, and you need to think about how much space you need back here, where your tongue is flat and relaxed, shaped kind of like a bowl. Oh, kind of like you're yawning. That's what my first voice teacher would tell me. You need to act like you're yawning, but then of course it always made me yawn. Okay, so our first note is an F. And think about, where is your best sound? And it's on an O, so and keep that space in your mouth. If you don't keep that space in your mouth throughout the entire phrase, then it's going to sound very thin. And this is what I usually hear. You want to keep a nice line, very constant tone quality. Tone quality is just the way you sound, whether it's bright or dark or rich or thin. You want to try to keep a really nice tone quality in this style of music. So that's that first little phrase. But then you have these little, it's almost like a mini phrase right after, and you want to keep your mouth the same shape. So right after you've sung with keep that space. Keep that space. And then think about up there on the F. The next little phrase in measures 8 and 9, it's really measure 9. You go from just an F in the staff to the F on the top of the staff. And for some people that can be quite jarring, but here's the trick. You remember your space up here? So you sing this. Keep the space, keep the space. You just keep that space. Sometimes I tell students that for the octave up, you really just have to think an octave up, but keep the space that you have. A lot of times what I'll hear is some people call it scooping. I like to call it mooing. I just think it's funnier to imagine people as cattle going I just think that's funny. Okay, so remember, keep the space. Think up and over to get up to that octave. And that'll fix any problems you have with that octave leap. Okay, the next little section is where you have your higher note, and that is in measure 17. You've just come off of the phrase, you've got to think of the F. Most people think, oh, I want to hit the E flat. And then they get to escridate, and they think, oh no, I've got to fix it. And then they get to the G 2 measures later, and it's just no-go. So this is what I hear a lot starting in measure 14. It just gets worse and worse, thinner and thinner, because they get more nervous because they're not getting the space that they need. So think about that space that you need in the G, the space you need in the F. Keep that space. Keeping that space, letting your sound go up and over, very helpful. Now, this is a place that I have starred, like a star. Whenever I mess up once, I think, okay, well, maybe it's just a mess up. Then if I mess up twice, I might mark it. But if I keep messing up over and over again, I will put a star over the measure. When I had this song as a freshman in college, I put a star over measures 21 and 22. It's not that it's the hardest spot, but it can be quite difficult if you don't approach it correctly. And as you're singing, you're about halfway through the song here, and so you're thinking, okay, I'm almost there, I can do this. And then you get here and you think you're out of breath, and it's not even that high. The problem is you're letting your space relax in the back, and so you're not giving that phrase the support it needs, especially not the support it needs to go into the next phrase. So you're starting on a C. Is what I hear a lot. So think about that E flat. Find your resonance. It's usually when your tongue is shaped like a bowl, lots of space back here. And also think about that F. And that should help you out. Keep that space. And that should smooth out that line. Measures 34 and 35, you have 2 options. If you're a newer singer though, or new to Italian, or new to singing above the staff, you might not want to do this option. You might want to save it for later. But you have 2. You actually have a higher version and then a lower version, and it's this little melismatic passage in measure 35. Melismatic just means lots of little notes together, basically. Okay, so there are 2 things that I like to do for a melismatic passage. On this one in particular, I want to take the notes as if they were 8th notes. So you take the downbeat and the upbeat of the phrase. So for instance, on the top, it would be you would just practice those notes over and over again. That's the B flat, the A, the G, B flat, G, E flat, and then C, F. I'll do that one more time for you. Then, when you have those, and you can sing that as if that was the melismatic passage, then add the other notes in. I like to do it staccato first. There are some sopranos who like to do it fluid first, very legato. As long as you're really going through the steps and really focusing on the melismatic passage and not just singing it over and over and over, then you'll be good. So, that E flat needs to be a little further down. Then I would do it more legato, but still slow. And then I would add the words in at the end. Let's look at the bottom option that you have there. If we were to do these in eighth notes, we'd start with the B flat, then the A, G, G, E flat, C, A, F. Then let's do it all in a staccato. Okay, sorry about that. Then after you get that, you can sing both of those. Then do it as legato. And it's very important to keep that space because right after it, and you have that section. So that's kind of my approach on melismatic passages. Really the only tricky section that I hear are the last two measures that you actually sing. Measure 48 and 40 going into 49. You have this where it has and then it goes up each time. On that one, you have the second time you do the E flat, think of it a little higher. That will help you keep your pitch up and not have you sag or get a little flat. I would definitely suggest that you do that slow and then speed up. And just take out that little turn and practice that little turn. Because it needs to be in rhythm. And that's pretty much it for Le Violette. It's a very lovely song and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do.